also liable to suggestions for guests and topics.
Events, programs, and
Welcome to this week's segment of Dialogue Houston. I'm your host, Lawrence Payne. To our regular viewing audience, welcome. To those joining us perhaps for the first time here on ACC's TV Dialogue Houston, you can now find us every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and again at 6 p.m. and on Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. As always, at the top of the hour, let me thank you for your thoughtful calls, emails, and text messages concerning previous shows we've aired here on ACC's TV Dialogue Houston. For after all, this is your community affairs, public affairs show, now proudly in its 30th season. We thank you always for your suggestions for topics and guests and subjects. We have a great show planned for you this afternoon. We're going to look at a wonderful nonprofit in our area that is doing great work, and it is something that I wanted to make sure our audience knew about. So I'm happy and proud to have the founder and the president, Rodolfo Cavazos, with us. And the organization is called the BridgePath. The BridgePath. And it's a wonderful organization whose mission is connecting resources to optimize community input. I'm have Rodolfo tell you all about it, and then we're going to dive into some issues related to why one needs to have an organization like this in our society, given our social, economic, and political realities that we face every day. So without further ado, Rodolfo, welcome to Dialogue Houston. So great to have you join us today.
Thank you, Larry, for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, tell us about BridgePath. What was the formation of BridgePath?
The formation of the BridgePath. Well, I guess that my 18 years in corporate America, dealing with personal money management, and a couple of years at the Federal Reserve, all in our community is always in need of personal financial education. Over these years, I've built a lot of strong relationships with not only financial institutions, but other community nonprofits. And by actually being partners and creating collaboratives with these organizations, you see that our system has failed. It's failed the consumer on teaching them how to create wealth, how to manage their money, how to manage their credit, and how to even teach their own kids. It just doesn't exist. And what does exist? Well, it's a lot of self-learning in many cases. So this organization, what we do is we focus on helping these communities that need the most help, usually the underbanked and the underserved, and provide them with the education on creating a budget, learning how to save, understanding credit, the importance of a credit score, starting their small business, what it takes to become a first-time homeowner. All these topics and all these concepts, we help them understand. We help them by mentoring them, coaching them, and providing presentations. So we've been very busy, Larry, for the past 6 years.
Well, as a former banker and this area that you're now working into, so great that you are in financial literacy, what happened to that? I'm just going to use myself as an example. When I was in school, in my little hometown of Orange, Texas, we had bankers to come to the school. We actually opened our bank accounts. We actually opened a saving and bank account. We all had our little passbooks, all right? And we would proudly on Saturday take our little nickels and dimes and quarters every Saturday, go to the bank and make a deposit. And we were taught whatever you have to bring to the bank to deposit, you split it in half. Half goes in your checking, half goes in your savings. And I did that I think I opened my first account when I was in 5th grade. So all the way through school, et cetera, et cetera. I worked all the time, starting when I was in the 8th grade. So by the time I got to be a junior and senior in high school, I had a little money in the bank. I even were able to purchase a motorcycle to deliver my newspapers. I was a newspaper boy, to deliver my motorcycles from a loan that I got from the bank, from the personal banker that I'd become friends with. I had a personal banker when I was a sophomore in college. Now, they lent me the money for the scooter based on my accounts and my relationship with them. I know that in the background, my father, he didn't have to co-sign the loan, but I knew that they knew him and he was, so kind of the backup was always there, understood. But I felt very proud to be able to go under my own name and sign that loan and get my motorcycle.
Absolutely.
Kids don't have that experience. We don't teach that in school anymore.
No.
We don't do that in school anymore. Why? What happened?
Well, I think the answer is pretty easy, Larry. I mean, and it's a generic answer. Times have changed, and the whole environment in which we live in has changed. The number of banks that exist has probably multiplied by 10 times. The size of our communities have increased in size by a huge multiplier. So with all that growth, things have to actually change. And let me just say this, a lot of these financial institutions that do provide assistance and funding and support to our organization, they do it because they want us to do exactly what you just itemized, to go out there into those communities and help kids, help young adults and senior citizens understand how to become a better consumer, someone that is valuable to a bank or a financial institution. So They provide that assistance.
So in the work that you do in education around financial literacy and all the stuff that you covered earlier that entails, that is under that banner, what has been the challenge when you talk to young people about savings, about money, about the future? We don't seem to have a certain segment of our youth population who seems to even think they have a future. That's why they don't think about savings and money and entrepreneurship, et cetera. They're just living and surviving day to day. I mean, I've had many young people in some of our neighborhoods that are really hard neighborhoods socially, economically, that tells me very clearly they don't expect to be here for their 18th birthday. So when you start talking to them about a future and savings and a family and all that doesn't register. We've done such a poor job in our school systems, in our neighborhoods, that these come from marginalized communities, from impoverished social economic communities, from all inequities and inequality that these kids face. You have been able to work with some of these kids and show them the light and in a sense turn them around so they can see a future.
Absolutely. And I know that you're correct about what you're saying. And I know that not only our organization, but there's other organizations in our community that are trying to do the right thing also. But just to your point, that it sometimes feels like a lost cause, right? And it starts with the parents. If the parents aren't there providing the role model because they never received the education or they feel that they can't get anywhere in their socioeconomic position they're in now, then how can their kids believe that they can? So in cases that not cases, but in collaboratives that we create in the community, we start by trying to reach out to these young adults and explain to them that, a 4-year college degree might not be for everybody, and that's okay. There's vocational schools that right now are doing a fabulous job here in Houston. And these people that graduate from these schools graduate with really great education in electricity, plumbing, AC, mechanics, all that. But you can teach them and guide them down that path if they want. But one thing that they do need to know that those schools are not going to teach them is how to manage money, why establish credit, why build a relationship with a local bank. You're going to need it. And that's where we come in and teach them the importance, because once they start making money, they are going to want to buy that motorcycle, that automobile, maybe move out on their own, on an apartment. So they need to know how to manage because they haven't been taught that.
Yeah, and financial literacy is so important. You mentioned that everybody that need to go to college, everybody is not college bound or college ready, or the great programs that are out there that you mentioned. I know a couple at Houston Community College, a 6-month certificate program. You can graduate and start at $75,000. Just right off the bat, $60,000 to $75,000 guaranteed right off the bat. They're waiting for you to graduate because they need you, because they're shorted of personnel. So they're out there for you. But as you said, once you start getting that paycheck, now you got to do something with it, right? You have to understand how to save it, how to budget, how to do it. the challenge, it seems to me, with many young people who begin to make a little money, if they come from a household, as you explained, that they have not had good lessons or good ways of dealing with money, that the cycle repeats itself. You can't teach what you don't know, right? And so I assume that part of this movement is to engage perhaps the parents also in educating them who never had the education around financial literacy, so that they can do a better job of helping their students, their kids.
Absolutely, Larry, because it's never too late. Wherever we come in to a person's life, whether it's a youth, whether it's a young adult, whether it's a 30, 40-year-old adult or senior citizens, there is always something that we can teach them. As an example, a senior citizen right now, I'm sure you're very familiar of all the scams that are going on out there. Scams everywhere. So we have to teach them, educate them on how to protect themselves, because unfortunately, Larry, even some family members will take advantage of them. We've seen some horror stories on how people lose substantial amounts of money to their relatives. So scammers are all out there. And so back to the young, of course, you have to explain it to them that it's got to be part of their skill set, aside from the education that they're receiving, whether it's vocational school or college. But they need to understand that it's a skill set that they need to learn. And we haven't said it, but all this education that we provide, Larry, is free. It's free. These are workshops that we go out in the community and do, and they're absolutely free. We do mentoring, meaning that we take what we call a client under our wing. It could be for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, and we help them reach every financial goal that they want. Meaning, as an example, if somebody doesn't have any credit, we know how to educate them, mentor them to start credit, sound credit, not go out and buy and get a credit card at a jewelry store. No, sound credit. If someone wants to start their own business and says, you know what, school wasn't for me, but I have this idea, I want to start this business, we can give them technical advice and mentoring, and then hand them off to the next partner that we have, which could be SBDC, it could be SCORE, to teach them how to create a business plan. It's kind of a holistic system that we work with, because we have these collaboratives. And so, but the real foundation here, again, Larry, and I hate to repeat myself, but this is what I do. You have to know about personal finances, because it is the key to everything. Even if you want to start your own small business, your personal finances, your personal credit is what you start your business on. Right.
And 2 points that you made that you touched on indirectly, this thing now that happens with seniors graduating from high school, they mail you a credit card.
Yes.
And so it is, as soon as you graduate from high school, the card comes in the mail. How they know that? Who knows? They set you up for failure if you have no skills, no financial literacy, because you think that, this card, I send my name, I can go do whatever. And then, so you rack up whatever the credit limit is automatically. And then you're trying to figure out how to pay it because you don't have a job, for one thing. All right. And so it's almost like they set you up for failure in the beginning.
Yes.
And that's very difficult. And then the second point you made about people wanting to start their business, because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, it seems, in more ways than one. The larger lesson there, not only your own personal finances, because it'll be based upon your record that you get a loan, but to understand that the little money you think you have enough to start a business is not enough. Because the failure of most small businesses in the first couple of years is due to being undercapitalized in the beginning. Right. They never had enough capital to start with. So they always were behind the 8 ball trying to play catch up. And that never works. That formula is just a doom for success. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up with you, and you're going to fail and you're going to close. But all that comes early on, as you said, in educating up front as to what those things are that one needs to know.
Correct. And just to name a couple of things that are significant for entrepreneurs, they have a great idea, but they never build a business plan, a growth plan. They don't have that map that's going to show them how to get from day one to beyond 5 years, which is usually the 3 to 5 years is usually the period of time when small businesses will fail. And then another thing that I mentioned and that we've seen historically is that many entrepreneurs and small business owners, Larry, will not differentiate their personal finances with their business finances. They mingle all the funds thinking, oh, this is just a business expense. And I'm can't do that. And that leads also to failure. So yes, we've seen it all.
And can get in trouble depending on the source of your funding.
Yes.
If you commingle some of those funds.
Yes. It's called the IRS.
Yes, there are a lot of lessons to be learned in this process. So in your great network of partners that you work with in your coalitions, which I'm sure is growing every day, they lend their expertise to their particular field of interest. And so they are there to help you, in any way that they have based upon what they do. Is there, I'm sure there's a growing need for that cadre of companies, of people. What do you see as the next phase, not only in your work with BridgePath, but the next phase of understanding this gap that we still have and closing this gap, the socioeconomic gap, in the city of Houston, because we still have so many kids coming out of so many schools that are underperforming in every definition of that word. So they start off really behind the 8 ball, and it's just hard to ever catch up. If you ever catch up.
It is, Larry. And that's a very good question and a very difficult question to answer. But the short answer I would say is you probably remember that back in the late 1990s, the actual state of Texas actually passed some law where it said that financial education should be taught at the high school level.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. But it didn't include any funding. No funding. So how are you going to actually get that done? So that's where I focus and say, you know what, we have to get our politicians engaged to see how important this is, because their kids, I'm sure they're doing okay. But our communities that you and I know, what we call the low to moderate income communities, they're not so lucky. And that's where that education needs to be created and sustained at that age, probably middle school, I would personally say. And then just middle school, high school, and even college. I have some nieces and nephews that they would call me and say, like you just said, I received this credit card and should I sign up for it? The one that really surprised me is when my nephew calls me and he says, I just got a job and I'm here to the bank. I need a bank so they can direct deposit my check. They want to give me a debit card. What is a debit card? And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is my nephew. I failed him. He doesn't even know what a debit card is. Oh, Lord. So, I mean, he's one of hundreds and thousands of kids that are out there that don't know the how to use a debit card, what a checking account is, or a check, or how to write a check anymore. So the education, like I said, it's needed, and we just have to get our leaders to find the money and provide this education, because if we don't, there are not enough of us nonprofits out there that can actually do. I mean, we're just working with the tip of the iceberg, as they say.
So we need to go back to the legislature to start off with to get some funds for that unfunded mandate of the law they passed without any funding, which they're good at. They're good at passing laws with no funding, unfunded mandates, and start there. But let me ask a question about this whole movement started a few years ago of neighborhood branch banking. I've always been curious at all of these big banks, because as you said, banking industry has changed so much. The names have changed. People who bought out, people have. I mean, it's all crazy. Deregulation, et cetera, et cetera. But in the old days, when the banks had to be accountable to, was it their CRS, community? What was it thing?
CRA, Community Investment Act.
Investment Act, CRA. When they had to be accountable to the CRA Act, and they all had to have a CRA officer. They all had to talk about what they were doing in neighborhoods and communities, how much money they were spending, where they were spending, how many loans they were making. It seemed like it was a different day then. That doesn't seem to have the same regulation or input today. That's part of my question. The second part of my question is, with banks wanting to always open little neighborhood branch banks in our communities, are they responding to the neighborhood and communities? Do they in fact make loans, or do they still play that game? Well, we can't make a decision here. It has to go up the chain. In some cases, it has to go even out of the state before we can make a decision whether we can give you a loan. Well, you're my neighborhood branch bank. If you can't, why am I talking to you? If the decision is going to be made, it has to be made somewhere else. Does all that still go on?
Well, let me see if I can answer as complete as the question was. One, CRA, yes, it's the Community Reinvestment Act. The financial institutions as of today, from small all the way to mega size, which is your Wells Fargo, Bank of America's, they all have a responsibility under CRA, and they still are providing that kind of funding in communities. Everyone has their own, I guess, game plan, if you will, on who they fund and how much. Not all banks are the same. But having said that, all banks do. And with the growth of all these banks, I mean, if you were to look at our Houston metro area, the number of banks, and it keeps growing. I mean, just recently another bank just merged, and they're from Louisiana, and they merged, and now they're going to be in this market. So anyway, we know that they're growing. However, these local banks, the ones you say that they're in my neighborhood, there's a good reason for that. One is that we need to help people avoid alternative financial institutions, if you will.
Yes.
Payday lenders, pawn shops, and because those are the ones that are always there nearby and ready to help you. Check cashing places. So some banks have said, okay, we're going to go inside an HEB, a Kroger, or a food city, a food town, and be there, a little mini branch. So those are very effective, and those are there for a reason to help those communities. Now, your question regarding, I want a loan, I've got to take it up this, well, that's changed too, Larry, because a lot of banks are doing everything online now, and you can do a lot of these applications online. Yeah, they're probably being serviced at some service center, not here locally, but they can get you an answer pretty darn quick. Okay. But let's just say this. You have to know as a consumer how well prepared you are in order to apply for a loan.
Right.
Okay? Right. That's why we're here, and we say, if client A says, I want to buy a car, not a new car, but a used car. I want to spend some. Okay, well, let's see what you have, and make sure that when you do apply online, which is more convenient, you're going to be approved. Because if you walk into a little neighborhood, like a mini bank at a grocery store, yeah, it's going to take a little longer, blah, blah, blah. But online is the key. But if you go in there and do that application, complete the application, and you're prepared, more than likely you are going to get that loan. Otherwise, if you go in there blindly and just because you need the money quickly, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
So how important is it to still have that personal relationship with a bank and a loan officer? Because that used to be the key.
That's a great question.
That used to be the real key to accessing the system.
Absolutely. And I think that today, in some cases, let's say, for instance, one of my partners, financial Unity Bank. You know who Unity Bank is?
I know Unity well. Yes.
Yeah. They're in the neighborhoods, and yes, it's important for you to walk in, and they're going to know you. They are not a huge mega bank where you walk in and they're not, unless you're a small business that completes a lot of transactions on a daily basis. They see you on a daily basis. So I still think it is important to know your banker. Make it a point to meet your banker, the bank manager. Let's just add another term here, another word: credit unions.
Yes.
Credit unions are fundamental. Credit unions are very good for our communities. If you don't know whether you can apply for or be a member, drop in and say, look, I live in this neighborhood. Yes, you can. And that's a great opportunity. And you don't have to be dealing with a very big bank.
And I'm glad you mentioned credit unions, because I got my first loan for a car from a credit union.
Exactly.
Actually, a church credit union. And the qualifications were less stringent. The accountability and transparency was more. So it was a balance. But again, because it worked on the basis of personal relationship and knowledge of the human being.
Right.
I was not a stranger to them. They were not a stranger to me.
Right.
And I think that makes all the difference in the world. But your point about credit unions, yes, never overlook a credit union. A credit union is an asset to join as a member. And actually something, if you join early on in your youth, it really pays dividends in the long run.
It certainly does. And let me quickly mention one thing, Larry, about your credit score. Credit bureaus today, there's 3: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. But there's something called Ultra FICO that a lot of people should know about. That's a new algorithm. It's a new algorithm that you can opt in. And they're also, what they're going to include in your credit profile is your checking behavior, your savings behavior, and the money market behavior. See,
good.
That'll help you improve your credit score. Yes, sir.
Right. Very good. I'm afraid, Rodolfo, we're out of time. We're going to have to actually probably do another segment down the road here in this. But thank you so much. But quickly tell people where they can find you and how to get involved with BridgePath.
Absolutely. Thank you. The BridgePath, the website, www.thebridgepath. Telephone numbers 832-285-6227, and workshops, seminars, and mentoring.
All right. Give them a call and get involved. Thank you. Quick closing thought in about the 10 seconds I have. We know that all that has happened this week, the second anniversary of George Floyd's shooting, the sacrificial lambs that were killed on Tuesday in Uvalde. We have to do better. We can do better. We can't let our kids just be collateral damage and say, oh, how sad, how sorry we are, how bad this is, and use those words and say we're going to pray for everybody. Yes, we should always pray, but we got to take action. We got to change legislation. We got to take some action. We got to do something to save lives of the innocent from being slaughtered all around this country. We can do better as a country. We can do better as a people. These are human beings. These are human beings. These are young children. These are adults who, for innocent, didn't do anything wrong to be slaughtered the way they were slaughtered. We ask you all to think about what you can do as an individual, along with others in concert, and take action around this issue. Whatever that you choose, direction you choose to do that, but something must be done. All right, we got to get out of here. Look forward to you joining us in future segments of Dialogue Houston. Until then, as always, be safe, be well, and peace, power, and love.